Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. اليوم جيتكم بواحد الفيديو الصداع. غنديروا اليوم واحد الجولة من داخل ناسا سبيس سنتر. اليوم غنديروا واحد الجولة بالداخل ناسا وغنكتشفوا شنو فيها وغنقربكم من جميع التفاصيل الموجودة داخل ناسا سبيس سنتر.
الفيديو ديال اليوم غيكون على شكل فيلم وثائقي وغيكون مقسم لقسمين. القسم الاول غنديروا جولة في ورشة لإصلاح وصناعة الأقمار الصناعية والمكوكات الفضائية وكذلك الصواريخ. أما الجزء الثاني فغيكون من قلب مكوك فضائي أو سبيس شاتل، يعني فيديو غيكون فيه معلومات في غاية الأهمية. إن شاء الله الفيديو يعجبكم وتستفدوا معايا، وما تنساوش ديروا لايك للفيديو وسبسكرايب للشانل. انا دابا غنتوجه للورشه ديال المينتنانس وصناعه الاقمار الصناعيه والصواريخ والمكوكات الفضائيه، وغيكون معنا واحد الخبير اللي غيدير لنا واحد البريزنتيشن على اول مركبه فضائيه امريكيه غتطلع الفضاء. يلا واجدين؟
Alright, we're going to go down all the way down to this side. Alright, looks like that's just about everyone. Before I begin, how's everyone doing today? So before I talk about what's right behind me, I figured we talk about the two rockets that are outside. I just figured it would be a lot easier if we talk about it in the AC. It's very nice and cool in here. So outside you're going to see two different rockets. On the right you're going to see we have the Mercury Redstone. And the Mercury Redstone was used for our first U.S. space program, the Mercury program, and the purpose of that was just to get our astronauts into space. So the first U.S. astronaut was Alan Shepard. Next to that we have the Little Joe 2. Now the Little Joe 2 was a test for the Apollo missions that ensured the dependability of the launch escape system, the command module parachute. That's going to be the rocket on the very left side. So we had three U.S. space programs that took us, or that were leading up to taking us to the moon. We had the Mercury program, like I stated, that's the rocket for the Mercury program. The Mercury program was just to get our astronauts into space. It was the beginning of the Cold War, so we were just trying to get cosmonaut into space first. After that, we had the Gemini mission, Gemini meaning twin. We can send 2 astronauts into space rather than the one in the Mercury capsule. And then after that, we had the Apollo mission, and that's going to be the rocket right behind me. Now this rocket is a Saturn V rocket. We're going to keep on moving down as we're talking. This rocket is going to be the Saturn V rocket. It's about 363 feet tall, which is about 60 feet taller than the Statue of Liberty, and weighs about 7.5 million pounds. Now if you look towards the front of the rocket, you're going to see some F1 engines, 5 of them to be exact, and they produce about 1.5 million pounds of thrust. In total, that's going to be 7.5 million pounds of thrust. So we broke the rocket up into 3 different stages. If y'all just want to keep on moving down, we're going to talk about these 3 stages. So we broke the rocket up into 3 different stages, technically 4. The stage behind me is going to be the first stage of the Saturn V rocket. Now this first stage was just to get us on hydrogen and liquid kerosene. And it burned for about 3 minutes or so. The exact time was about 2 minutes and 41 seconds. And like I said, the purpose of this first stage was just to get it off the ground. Now one important thing to mention about this Saturn V rocket, this one did not fly, but this one is flight ready. Didn't say could be, didn't say might be. No, this one is flight ready. All it needs is a fresh tank of gas and it's pretty much good to go. So we'll keep on moving down. Now the Saturn V rocket flew a total of 13 times. 9 of those were to the moon, and 6 of those were successful lunar landing missions. Now after the first stage was done, after its mission was complete, it would land in the ocean and would never be recovered. None of these stages of the Saturn V rocket would be recovered, nor can we reuse them compared to what SpaceX is doing. We're actually able to reuse the capsules and stages. So now behind me is going to be the second stage of the Saturn V rocket. Now the second stage is the equivalent to our first US space rocket outside the Mercury Redstone. And when I say it's equivalent, it traveled for about the same amount of time and the same amount of distance. It traveled for about 6 minutes or so. And this second stage was just to get us into lower Earth orbit. Now after this stage was done, it would eventually end up either burning up in the Earth's atmosphere or orbiting around the Earth, potentially becoming space garbage. So we'll keep on moving down. Another thing to mention, 90% of this rocket's weight is just fuel. And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the third and final stage of the Saturn V rocket before we get to the good stuff. Now what's significant about the third stage is it actually flew twice, twice. The first time was for about 2 minutes, getting us out of lower Earth orbit. Then it cut off for about an hour or so, and then it reignited again, getting us closer to the lunar orbit. Now what's interesting about this part, or significant about, or cool about this part, is like I stated, with the second stage, it was either orbiting around the Earth once it was done or burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. So for the third stage in the Apollo 13 mission in 2002, they actually found the third stage still orbiting around the sun along with the Earth. And then we'll go ahead and make our way to where the magic happens, cool stuff. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see where, like I stated before, this is where the magic happens. The very front, that brown piece is going to be the command module, also known as a capsule. The gray piece is going to be the service module. And then in this white piece right here would have been where the lunar landing module would have been. It's not in there right now. We have a better example of it in Space Center Houston, right above where the VRs and the simulators are. So the way that all this worked, in Apollo 11's case, it would have been the three astronauts would have been inside the capsule once it launched and once it re-entered back into Earth's atmosphere. In Apollo 11's case, it would have been Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and Neil Armstrong. And they all would have been in that capsule right there. Once it makes its way closer to the lunar, this gray part and this brown, this gray part and this brown part would detach from this part. This part right here would actually open up like a flower, like kind of like a petal effect. And it would do a 180 degrees turn, connect to the lunar landing module, and that piece will make its way towards the lunar orbit. You can see a better example of that right over here on the side. So these essentially three pieces would make its way to the lunar orbit. The two astronauts, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, would make their way from the command module, the capsule, to the lunar landing module. Then that part would detach, while Michael Collins would stay in the command module in the capsule. That part would be orbiting around the lunar orbit, while the lunar landing module would make its way down to the lunar surface. Once it makes its way down to the lunar surface, the astronauts would get out, do their mission. The infamous first step on the moon, the flag on the moon, the controversial flag wave, and this and that. Once they're done with their mission, the descending part of the lunar landing module would stay on the lunar surface. All 6 of them are still on the lunar surface. The ascending part would shoot its way back up, connecting with the command module and the service module where Michael Collins was. Once they connect back, the two astronauts, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, will make their way from the lunar landing module to the command module, and then they will thrust their way back to Earth's orbit. And out of this 363 feet of rocket, the only thing that returns back to Earth is that brown part right there. Does anyone have any questions so far? Alrighty. So we do have a couple minutes before we have to head back to the tram. Now's the time to go ahead and take those photos and videos. Just let me know which side you need. I'm just kidding. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, myself, or Jeremy Jessica. And then when we're ready, we're going to exit through that door right over there and head back to the tram. Some people find that the best photos are going to be over there. In that corner, you can get there's some banners that are displayed. They display all of the Apollo missions, so you can get the whole entire rocket. But with that being said, thank you.
Thank you.
وصلنا الجزء الثاني من الفيديو اللي غيكون من داخل سبيس شاتل ديسكفري. هو هذا اللي كتشاهدوا في الصورة لحظة الإقلاع، كيكون مثبت فوق الصاروخين اللي باللون الأبيض، هما اللي كيساعدوه في عملية الإقلاع. بعد عملية الإقلاع كنفصل عليهم وكيباشروا هما السقوط ديالهم بواسطة مظلات هوائية. أما اللي باللون البرتقالي هو خزان الوقود اللي كنفاصل عليه كذلك بعد مسافة 45 كيلومتر، بينما المكوك كيكمل الرحلة ديالو الفضاء. من بعد هاد التعريف الصغير على السبيس شاتل، حنا دابا غنبداو الجولة ديالنا. غتكون من هاد الطائرة اللي مثبت عليها المكوك، هي شاتل كيري ايركرافت اللي الدور ديالها حمل المكوك من مكان الوصول لمركز ناسا. الاسم ديالها 905 اللي هي نسخة معدلة البوينغ 747 اللي كتستخدمها وكالة ناسا لحمل المكوكات الفضائية. كيف ما كتلاحظوا معايا هاد المقاعد اللي العدد ديالها 6 مخصصة لرواد الفضاء بالإضافة إلى ربان الطائرة.
John Geiger was so very instrumental in the space shuttle program because he was the one that came up with the idea of placing the space shuttle orbiter on top of the 747 and 747 to move it across the country, to get it from California.
مزودة من السقف ديالها بقضبان حديدية باش تكون قادرة على حمل المكوك الفضائي. دابا غنمشيو للطابق الثاني باش نكتشفوا المكوك الفضائي. هذا هو الشكل ديال ديسكفري اللي طار اول مره الفضاء عام 1984 واللي كتبلغ السرعه ديالو 12 كيلومتر في الثانيه. هذه هي غرفة القيادة ديال السبيس شاتل. في هذا المكان كيتم تثبيت الأقمار الاصطناعية وشحنها. هذه الحلقة السوداء هي المحرك ديال القمر الاصطناعي اللي الاسم ديالو انتلسات 11 اللي طار أول مرة للفضاء عام 1992. هذا المكوك مزود ب25,000 طبقة مقاومة للحرارة ديال الفضاء. هو كذلك قادر على حمل 32 طن من أقمار اصطناعية ومعدات، وكذلك أحجار اللي كيجيبوها من الفضاء اللي كيجريو على اختبارات. فهاد المكان اللي واقف فيه انا الاسفل ديالو هو المكان المخصص لرواد الفضاء، هو المكان التالي اللي غنزل ليه. هذه هي البدلة ديال رواد الفضاء. هذا المكان هذا مخصص للمعدات ديالهم. غننزل دابا باش نكتشف المكوك من الاسفل. هادو هما الجناحين ديال طائرة ناسا 905 اللي كانت في الأول تابعة لشركة أمريكان إيرلاينز. كيف ما كتشوفوا الطبقات السوداء كلها طبقات عازلة للحرارة. وصلنا دابا لنهاية الحلقة. نتمنى تكونوا استفدتوا معلومات جديدة ونتمنى تكون عجباتكم الحلقة. الجولة ديالي في الناسا باقا ما سالات وباقي غنكتشف اشياء جديدة اللي غتكون في الفيديو الجاي ان شاء الله. خليكم معايا وما تنساوش تدعموني بلايك وسبسكرايب ونشوفكم في فيديو جديد.